Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of Day 9 Daily number 333, where we are doing a half and half, where we take a game, blast through it quickly to get a sense of what's going on, and then we're going to look at it from one player's point of view, and then from the other player's point of view. And our goal is to try to find as many key little timings as we can, and most importantly, to try to scout our opponents properly and think about that properly. And what I ended up doing a lot when we were just ending part 1 is to talk about what we're going to be doing a lot as SC, FXOsC here in the south position, is thinking about all the possibilities that our Protoss opponent could be doing, and to think about how we're going to deal with all those. Let me actually remove this production. Is there any way to do none? There we go. So this is a pretty typical build order that we're going to see at the start. But the funny thing is that when you begin watching replays from just one person's point of view, you see how little you're actually seeing, right? It's so easy to be like, oh yeah, well I'm watching this, oh it looks pretty standard from Protoss, oh it looks pretty standard from Terran. But if you actually come to Terran, Terran doesn't even know if Protoss is building gateways in the middle of the map. He doesn't know if there's a cannon rush coming. He doesn't know if his opponent is going for a 14 Nexus before building a gateways. He just doesn't know. So right now, we see this happen. I'm already going to point out that Terran successfully scouted Protoss. Did you know that if a Protoss opens with an early gateway and chrono boost goes like a gateway gas, but then begins chrono boosting zealots before getting a cybernetics core? If Protoss does that, Terran actually almost always loses with this opening. This opening loses a lot because this reactor takes 50 full seconds to build. Zealots are coming in about 2 every 50 seconds. It's a little slower than that, but even though it's about 2 every 50 seconds. So you can lose outright to that. But hey, no big deal. He spotted his opponent. Never take this for granted, right? Already we've pointed out that this, which is, I would say, the most common build order in this matchup, this actually has a gigantic vulnerability that we are not against, because we saw our opponent already scouting that second gas geyser. He hasn't done that yet. We do see that the cybernetics core is already done, and this gas geyser hasn't been started. This is already a big sign to us that he is either I almost made the mistake. An incorrect thing to say is the following. We don't see a gas, so he's probably going for a Nexus or he's going for a 4 warp gate. That's what I would say as a commentator, because it's important for the crowd. Maybe people aren't me and don't spend their whole lives looking at StarCraft, and those crowd people have no idea what's happening. So I just say he could be expanding, he could be building gateways. These are the possibilities that I present you with. That is not how I would think about it as a player. That's how I say it as a commentator, but as a player what I would say is, I see this. I'm not worried about Void Rays. I'm not worried about Void Rays. I'm not really worried about a lot of sentries early on because I don't see this going down yet. What else am I not worried about? I guess no DTs as well. I'm not worried about that. Hell, if he's not going Void Ray and not going DT, I don't really need to get an engineering bay very soon at all. I don't really need to do that much extraneous scouting around the map either, because hell, what is he going to be really hiding? Unless it's a bunch of gateways.
Complete.
And then upon identifying what he's not doing, I can say, well, yeah, I might be a little more encouraged to build a bunker or something like that. And we do see the expansion. Don't forget this important step. This moment right now is the most important moment for you to understand the difference between what is he doing versus what is he not doing. If you get stuck in the, well, what is he doing mode, you say, yeah, he's early expanding. Cool. Here's my build order versus early expanding. No, wait, hold on, wait a minute. What about this? What about this thing? We saw no early gas, and as we can see, Protoss still hasn't taken the gas. We scouted no early gas as SC4U, and remember that sentence I just slipped in there? I'm not that worried about sentries. That is huge. I'm not that worried about sentries. I'm not that worried about sentries. An early Marine Marauder push might be quite a bit stronger, don't you think? And you should think, because thinking is useful in StarCraft too, right? There you go. There you go. All right, cool. Now, of course, since you are, maybe you're not a Masters level player who knows a lot of strategies. Maybe you've been playing for maybe a month. You're in Bronze League, but you're having fun. Wing it!
Complete.
Wing it! I don't see that many gateways. We probably can't have a lot of gateway units. Just get in the habit of doing it. It doesn't matter if it's exact. It's just important that you are doing it. So, of course, back in home base, we are doing the build order almost by the book at this point. We're scouting around. Wow, I really do not need to worry about sentries. I do not need to worry about those sentries at all. This is becoming so useful for me. I'm actually kind of surprised that we're getting this much information. Is that Stalker out yet? My God, lazy. Looking good, my friend. And that not sentries thing is really sticking out in my mind because you know what? This little push forward, I'm actually really digging. I'm really liking this little push forward. I'm wondering to myself, why didn't we push with our initial set? This is something that I always ask myself a lot. I might occasionally rewind like this. I'm thinking, why didn't he attack sooner? Why not? And to be honest here, I don't really have a good answer. It seems like it would be fairly effective. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Regardless, I'm going to be moving out. Moving forthward widthwise. We're going to be continuing. And see that this push makes a lot of sense to me. If our opponent doesn't really have sentries, then we're basically going to be up against a whole bunch of zealots and stalkers. Maybe some probes in here as well. I'm a little worried about our tech transition out of this, and I want to see what sort of damage we can do in this battle. SCVs are amazing for just absorbing hits from these gateway units. For any of you who do not bring a bunch of SCVs into battles like this, I recommend it. Those are pretty good. What did we kill? Anyone count? Alright, that's something that I like to do a lot. Let's rewind. What units specifically did we kill? I'm going to speed it up to this battle again. We see, as we're approaching in here, we see some stalkers in here. Alright. We're already getting a little bit more information on our opponent. We saw that there was no gas for a while, so probably not that many sentries. And what are we seeing here? Well, if I look at the screen, I'm actually seeing, you know, some guys mining minerals. That's expected. But the stalker count is pretty high. There's kind of a lot of stalkers. 1 or 2 would count as low for me. 5 and up would count as kind of a lot this early on. And I generally think about stalkers in terms of 3s. You know, like 1 or 2 is like 1 cycle. And then 5 or 6 is like another gateway cycle. And then like 9 or 10, that's like another gateway cycle. I guess around 8 or 9 is another gateway cycle. So these help me envision how my opponent is spending money. So as I'm here, I'm understanding, okay, this attack by SC makes sense to me on the he can't have sentries, he can't have air front, he can't have that much tech. Mainly the sentries. And when I see this, stalkers are expensive. I'm expecting my opponent is not only broke, but hasn't really built anything else. And that's actually accurate. He hasn't built a Twilight Council, has not built a robotics facility. Stalkers are a very expensive unit. And again, from our not perspective, if he's building a lot of stalkers and spending money on that, then he's not spending money on other things. If I saw a lot of zealots and sentries, then yeah, he can spend all sorts of money on other stuff. Mainly killed zealots, picked off a few probes, but in small numbers, these Marine Marauder aren't going to end up being the most amazing units in the world. I don't mind an expand here because I'm really feeling to myself, yeah, he pretty much only has these gateways. He can't really threaten an expand attempt by me. But it looks like Lazy, aka FXOsC, wants to keep the pressure applying. And here's a moment where I'm real curious to see what he's waiting for. The stim seems to be the most sensible thing to say. Yeah, he's just trying to get that good business. But he's not scouting his opponent. Well, okay. I told you the attack happened at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Is that accurate? Let me see. It looks like, I'll just tell you yes or no. Yeah, it's about 6 minutes and 30 seconds, and we saw like a couple of units. Ooh, I fast-forwarded too much. We left, and there were about maybe 4 stalkers there, and like maybe a zealot as well. So here's a fun game that I play a lot whenever I'm doing a half-seat is... Okay, so I've actually gone through and watched this whole game all the way through, right? And if you were here for part 1, you would have watched this whole game the whole way through with me. But now we're watching from just SC's perspective. You may have thought you knew everything that was going on in this game, but I'm going to ask you the mysterious question. How many gateway units does our opponent have? We saw 3 gateways. At 6 minutes and 30 seconds, we saw like 4 or 5 units. So that means at most he can have 10 units. 10 units total. 10 gateway units total, right? Let's actually come back and see if our opponent has that much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go, alright? We have just concluded facts about his army with nothing being scouted. He can have at most 10 units. That seems like a fairly useful exercise, does it? It's so easy to get to this point in the game and to just not make basic statements like he should have about this much stuff. Every 30 seconds is about a gateway cycle, give or take. So yeah, now he should have like 12 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Alright, well, that seems pretty reasonable. Alright, so we're starting to get a good sense of what's going on here. The delay on this, guys, is really making me feel like Protoss has to rely on Stalkers and Zealots. If he's relying on Stalkers and Zealots, he's not doing other stuff with his money.
Additional supply depots.
So that makes me feel yet more confident. Look at this, we have not even gone into his base. I would probably poke in with an SCV. Here's another key bit of information. We have our little force here. Yeah, we have stim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, let me back away. I just want to do that little counting exercise again. At 8 minutes, we said he had 11 units, I believe. Alright, so here's, yep, 11 units. So that means when we go attack at 9 minutes, he probably has a little less than 5 more. So probably has maybe 14, 15, 16 units. Bum-ba-dum-ba. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have 16 units. Hey, cool! As we've done this scout, I have just concluded that my opponent has been basically non-stop building gateway units the entire time. Was that not easy? What happens if you're building gateway units non-stop the entire time, especially those expensive Stalkers? Oh my goody goodness, you can't possibly be getting a whole bunch of other tech structures. As we come in, we see Protoss is broke and has added on only 1 additional gateway. There you go. Dum-ba-da-dum-ba-da-da. If I saw a lot more Zealots, I'd think to myself, ooh, he probably has extra money left over. If I saw a lot of Sentries, I'd be like, woo, he probably has a lot more money left over. If I didn't see that many units, I'd be like, oh, well, I guess he's building something scary, right? So, in essence, Terran, with that first initial attack, I feel like he saw the timing, he moved in with the units. He moved in with these units early on, after getting the concussive shell. Did a little damage after seeing me expand, and then is just following it up with a little more aggression, and a little more, and a little more. And this moment in time is actually kind of gross, when our whole army actually does get defended, and I still feel like I'm up against a gateway-ing player. I mean, I guess it makes sense to me. I'm still feeling like my opponent doesn't really have much of anything, other than these gateway units, because it's like a hell of a lot of gateway units. So I'm still wondering why our good friend Lazy didn't just go for the early expand, poke with an SCV, get a sense of what was going on, and pull back. Because, I mean, notice that in those battles, we were able to pretty accurately predict how many units he should have. But that doesn't mean that we can still kill him, right? We like walked in there and we got murdered. We went, oh, I guess he's producing a lot. We just kind of have a better sense of what he's up to. So I'm still feeling like my opponent is fairly gateway dedicated at this point in time. And this is a nice little tactic by SC. And it looks like he's just going to drill his opponent again. I don't actually... Here's something I didn't know beforehand that I'm starting to learn now. In this game, I have just learned the following. I can commit to Marine Marauder in these sorts of pushes, and it becomes very hard for an opponent to stop building gateway units and to do something different. I mean, if I look in here, there's just not a lot going on from Hasu, and Hasu's just like not a bad player. So a lot of what I've said beforehand is stuff that many Terran players will do anyways, which is just to count units, get a sense of what's going on, do some aggression in some logical spots. But this follow-up push, I just didn't really know that this was something that you could do all the time. And as it turns out, it's pretty effective. We've kept our opponent forced to only make gateway units, and then when we finally make a push... You jerk. Well, you jerk. Dropping a mule? Yeah, in your face. You're broke. You don't have any things, man. But that's fine. We'll give that to SC. We'll give it to him. So, I would say that we got a good bit of the learning done in that there game. I mean, I learned of a useful way to exploit this expansion. But the big thing that we did from SC's perspective is we got that good read, that very juicy read on the delayed gas, plus the expansion. He cannot be getting sentry defense. We exploit it with another attack. He had to defend with expensive units. We exploit that by making another attack. He has to defend that by making more gateway units. And we exploit that by pulling all our frickin' SCVs off mining and going to kill him. Always try to argue for the player before you argue against the player. It's very, very easy to just be like, oh, well, he pulled all his SCVs off and he attacked at the end and it worked. What an all-inning noob. What a nude. But of course, as we can see, it seemed to make logical sense when we looked at it from FXOsC's point of view. Let's do a real fast half-see from Hasu's point of view. Let's see what we can learn at this point. I'm actually going to learn a little bit about the build order. You saw me talk a lot about the decision-making of SC. Well, you know what? I kind of want to learn a build. So this is going to allow me some focus. Alright, well, you know what? We're just not learning that much as we're scouting around here from Hasu's perspective. Oh, goodness, how little's learned. And, yep, just doing the loop-de-loop gets the good sense that the reactor's incoming.
Your probes are under attack.
And there is the Nexus going down for our good friend Hasu. Now, you gotta imagine to yourself, if my opponent's going for a reactor, he's just not gonna have units for a very long time. For a very, very, very long time. So there's nothing wrong, in my eyes, with just not building units for a while. I think building the third gateway early on makes a lot of sense, and Hasu does it. I honestly think making another gas geyser makes a lot of sense at this point in time. Maybe he can do an early push, but I'll probably be able to hold it off with my zealots and stalkers, and then the instant I start getting more gas, I can begin building sentries, which will really help me with those early defenses. And I can use this extra money to start doing other creative things with. It's making me start to realize, man, I can't believe how important this second gas is. I mean, there are ways to play where you just completely avoid building any units at all for a little while, and you get like 4 gates really fast and a robo for observers, and then you get that Vespine geyser. But note that in that course, we still managed to sneak out a robo. There's the transfer, and at this point in time, Hasu's doesn't know anything. He's just morphing in stalkers. He doesn't know if his opponent is going for a fast expansion. He doesn't know if his opponent made a third barracks. He just knows that he saw 2 racks, needs to build a good amount to stay alive. Here comes the ultra mega scary push. And I think Hasu does a very reasonable thing in terms of trying to build more zealots to defend. What's going on in the probe production front? You know, this might be the biggest issue that I've seen at this point. Zealots and stalkers are really good. Like, super, super good, right? Incredibly powerful units. You really don't need desperately to pull a ton of probes off. They're going to be pretty boss at handling themselves. I think this makes sense for Hasu to have pulled back because of the fact that, you know, there were a lot of SCVs out on the field. But what I really want to ask myself is, did this build, was he positioning up on the top? Many before this asked, what could Hasu have done to be able to hold off this attack? I'm really going to look through this fairly closely. And right after this battle, we'll be taking a little bit of a break. We do see it looks like he managed to pick off a single Marine, but we see the Zealots not really participating in the battle. Yeah, look at this one zealot. This is basically 4 stalkers and a bunch of probes held this off. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that, yeah, I'm going to keep my stalkers up here, but I really want to morph zealots here. So that way, if he comes into the ramp, if he comes down, if my Terran player comes down and tries to run up the ramp, I can still take my zealots here and waltz up this way. But also, if he tries to swing around to this Nexus side, then I want to be pulling my zealots up this way. Not many will take the time to actually watch a replay slowly and think about it all from Hasu's point of view. These zealots getting morphed up on the high ground. Probably going to want to morph them up on the low ground next time. Or should I say down on the low ground next time. And it looks like he pulled a good amount of probes off. And I honestly don't think we needed to bring the probes into the fight that much. So maybe just my Expo probes I want to bring instead of any ones in the main. When we come back, we're going to finish up looking at it from Hasu's point of view. We're going to take some questions, and keep in mind, we're going to be doing the half and halves all week long until the end of time. And by the end of time, I mean Thursday, so we're going to do it 2 more times. Yeah. So we'll be back after this short break. I'm going to get some water. Thank y'all for coming in. We'll be back in a second with part number 3. Until then, let's listen to Ungirthed by Purity Ring.